Hello everybody, it's Chibi, and today I am here to bring you a World Trigger anime review. Now, this week's episode of World Trigger actually arrives early. Thank God for daylight savings, huh? Because it actually arrived an hour early compared to the usual time we usually get this series. So hopefully One Piece actually airs early than that. I really hope it does. But anyways, this week's episode of World Trigger. A lot of setup. Definitely this episode was a lot of setup and a lot of build-up for whatever arc we're about to get into. I'm just going to say it right now. Since this is a shonen, it definitely has arc, so whatever's going on, this arc is building up. Because at the end of this episode, you see this A-class rank border agent talking to the director, if I'm correct, and this director and this border agent say like, oh, I think he's working with a neighbor. For instance, he's saying Osamu is working with a neighbor, and he's detected that maybe Kuga is a neighbor, pretty much. So the ending conclusion of this episode builds up to something that's probably going to lead into a fight. Because at the end of this, you have it to where the director states, if there is a neighbor, and we find him, eliminate the neighbor. Because they're the enemies, a border. So right there, very interesting conclusion. Very interesting conclusion because we're probably definitely going to get a fight between this border agent, this A-class border agent, because he had an A on his shirt, and probably Kuga. And probably Osamu is going to get found out too in the process of this. So we'll have to see exactly where the story goes, because we still don't know the exact reason of why Kuga decided to come to the normal world. Well, I still don't understand the overall reason why he did, but we'll start to find out about that, because there's a lot of backstory that needs to be revealed when it comes to Kuga. But looking past that entire setup, majority of this episode, like in the middle half, was just Osamu's trial, and discussing the events of whatever's going on with these abnormal gates opening up to where these different neighbor creatures are coming inside, like Igar, I think that's how you call it, Igar, it's the giant-ass, blimp freaking neighbor that blew up, was trying to suicide bomb in this episode. But either way, the middle half of this episode is just, discussing Osamu's trial, what's going to happen to him, and you see it to where Osamu thinks a long time in this episode. I actually want to mention that. I don't know if it was because my video was lagging, or if it was Crunchyroll, or I don't know. My timer was running fine when I looked at the video, but at the meeting, when you had the director ask, like, would you do it again? Like, he's like this, would you do it again and break the rules if the same events happen again? For instance, like, a neighbor comes in and is killing people in the school. Would you do it again? And it felt like there was a long-ass pause. Like, did you see how many still frames we had and no dialogue in that scene? That's like something you would see from One Piece, the suspension building up and the slow pacing right there. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, seriously, there were some scenes to where it, like, froze on Osamu's face for, like, 5 to 8 seconds. I'm like, what the fuck? Is my video frozen? I'm not joking. I thought my video was frozen a couple times when I was watching this episode, and I'm like, and it wasn't. I'm like, okay. Are they trying to save budget or something in this episode? Or were they trying to build up suspense? Whatever it was, I definitely got suspenseful in that scene. I will admit, it definitely had a lot of suspense to it, so I can't really put down the episode for that. It's just, I don't know if it's just me that noticed that. But either way, moving past that entire scene, I like Osamu of what he stated. For instance, yes, he would do it again. He would break the rules to save someone else if he could. For instance, what he did at the school. So, that makes me have a lot more respect for Osamu's character for him to be willing to say that. Another thing too, Kitora, she has opened up quite a bit from this episode. We get to see a little bit more personality traits from her. She will not take credit for whatever that Igar did to the town. For instance, like taking it down. She completely stated to Kuga, and she stated to everybody else pretty much like, no, I didn't bring this thing down. She had help, as she says, but she did not bring it down. And that actually gives me a lot of respect for her character. She's not going to take credit for something she did not do. She doesn't know who exactly did it, but she knows she got help somehow. And this right here makes me respect her, because she doesn't take credit for something she did not do. Now, another couple scenes in this episode, you have it to where we find out a little subtle hint. I don't know exactly what it is, but supposedly this character called Jin. This character, Jin, has this ability called Side Effect. Now, I'm going to take a quick guess and say it is an ability, because the way it was brought up and mentioned, and the way all the directors and politics or whatever, the top leaders of Border was looking at each other in that meeting room, I'm willing to bet the side effect, whatever Jin said with side effect, is a major ability, because he stated that my side effect tells me he's involved in all these abnormal gates opening up. That's what he said. And everybody shut up, was quiet, and then they let him go. So, whatever this side effect is, it's probably an ability. Probably maybe foresight. It could be foresight, maybe a super, like a sixth sense, like you detect something. I don't really know. But I mean, that definitely is going to play a major part probably down the future of this upcoming arc, or later way down the series, I don't know. But overall, the episode is decent. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's not the best thing of World Trigger so far, but it's a decent episode. We need this episode for the exposition and the plot to progress forward, and that's exactly what we had in this week's episode. So, a great episode. A great episode of World Trigger, honestly. The one thing I do want to mention before I end this review, though, is that we find out if you use a trigger, you will leave, like, Tree-on reaction, where you kill, like, the, neighbor monster, the Igars and stuff. Like the different creatures, if you kill them, like your Tree-on levels or whatever, I'm guessing some form of residue will stay on the creature, and people can actually check it out, like the border agents can check it out to see who exactly killed that creature. And so, this can lead into where Kuga can be caught, because they're already starting to detect that there's different Tree-on reactions on the different creatures that supposedly Osamu has killed. So, yeah, this right here was a really interesting revelation in this episode. So, anyways, I want to end this episode review of World Trigger here. You all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.